Welcome back, guys, to the Safe Room. My name is Sean Williams, better known as the President, as most people know me by. If you are new, welcome to the family. Welcome to the Safe Room. Pull up a chair, grab your drinks, grab your snack, because things are about to get interesting. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back. And I don't know what to say. This is. I might cry in this episode because this is the final episode for season 1 of the Safe Room. And if you know, you know. I've been promoting this for a couple weeks now, and honestly, I'm gonna give this person an introduction. But if you've been keeping up with my Instagram posts, you should probably know who I got on the show today. This woman, just talented, intelligent, beautiful in many aspects. She is killing it all over around the world, and we've had the pleasure to have her at our Black Brilliance conference. If you guys know about that, things go down once the conference happens. And she was there for, I believe it was the second year. And today we have her on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Toni Morgan.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be on the show and an honor to be on the season finale. Congratulations on an entire season.
Thank you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and trust me, at the end of the episode, we're gonna get to that. But we had to do something special. I had to come out with a bang.
That's the only way to do it, right? That's the only way to go. You can't just have regular, and think you're just gonna close out regular.
Yeah.
Like you gotta. There's gotta be some kind of ascent, and you gotta get to the peak, and then just boom, right?
Absolutely.
You did it right.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. And again, if you guys been keeping up with my posts, then you guys should probably know about all the stuff that I've tried to promote about Toni, what she does, and just the connections to one thing, and that is Black Brilliance. Now, again, if you don't know what Black Brilliance is, I mean, come on. I feel like you're kind of missing out. It's a yearly conference.
What Black Brilliance is, and they listen to your show, then they're not listening to your show, and they don't know you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but for you guys who don't know and probably are outside of the realm of it, it's a yearly conference where we host workshops talking about the struggles and the accomplishments of Black youth through student advocacy. So it's student run, it's by the students, for the students. It's a huge event. Every year we come up with different topics such as, microaggression, police brutality, and it's just a great environment. We all come together as one and we have these discussions, and, it's not to just say oh my God, it's so serious and serious. Yes, we want to make it serious because these are important issues that should be addressed and we need to, have these conversations around. But they used to get very litty at other points as well, and again, if you've been there, the lunch session.
Yep.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. So, yeah, that's just a little quick, brief summary. But, if you are interested about Black Brilliance, you can always ask me, personally, anytime, again, I know there's people who've been there before, and every year, when it's around this time, people are always talking about Black Brilliance, oh my God, it's the time to, get lit, all the stuff's happening. But I digress. Today we got Toni, and we're going to basically go down into the whole narrative of Black Brilliance, So before we do that, I think it's important that Black Brilliance wasn't just something that we woke up one day and was oh my God, you know what? We're going to do this. No, there's a story to it. There's an origin. And that origin was the Harvard University trip planned by this lady right here, Miss Toni Morgan. And, I still think about the trip today. It was just really amazing. Just everything about it, from just all the different events. I remember, I think it was the policy conference as well. That was amazing. Just going on to campus as well, just exploring. And even the bus ride. I enjoy a good bus ride too.
Yeah. They always say it's not just the destination, it's the journey to get there. That's where you make all your memories. Yeah. And you got on the bus for some hours.
Yes, absolutely. And guys, because of this trip, we had the inspiration to do Black Brilliance, but I think enough of me talking. I feel like I'm talking too much. I want to get to my guests. So, Toni, first question. What was your motivation to organize this trip to Harvard University for TDSB students?
For a long time, I guess since I've been working, before I moved to Boston, I worked in Jane and Finch for about 8 years. Started working in 2001 at Jane Finch Community and Family Center. Big up to them. And the program that I ran was called Women Moving Forward, and it was for mothers in the area who had young kids who had this dream or aspiration to go to college or university. And so I managed and ran that program for a bunch of years, and we were good at it. We were good at despite everything that, whether it was social workers or welfare workers or educators or teachers, there was always some doubt about who we were serving and what they were capable of. Like, don't put those ideas in your client's head, in the participants' heads, because that's irresponsible to do that. And that really bothered me. That really bothered me that, the very idea of like planting a seed that great scared people enough to like completely shut down the idea. And so I made the decision that I was going to apply to graduate school, which is what I went to Harvard was for grad school. I went to Ryerson. Let me just be clear. So I went to Ryerson, took forever to graduate. Because I worked full-time and went to school part-time. And part of that time when I was going to school at Ryerson, I managed Women Moving Forward full-time. So I was a full-time manager and then a part-time student. And then sometimes I was a full-time student and a full-time manager. It just depended on the year and the day. So once that was all wrapped up, I decided that I was going to apply to graduate school. And that's when I applied to Harvard. And so the very first thing in my mind when I got to campus was, I want everyone I know from Jane and Finch that I've worked with, that I've connected with, to be here to experience this with me. And that's kind of where I just got this idea like literally in September, and I just started making phone calls to everyone that I knew at TDSB and people I knew in the community, and I was like, how do we make this happen? And so the folks at TDSB, Kevin Sutton and Chelsea and all of those people were like, yo, let's do this. Like, we've been working with you from time. So yeah, of course, we trust what this is about. You just tell us what we need to do and we'll do whatever we need to do on our end to make it happen. So yeah, so I just kind of navigated the channels, and found an opportunity to organize a conference for you guys. To organize visits to different campuses. I got different undergraduate students to take you guys on tours. I just organized this whole thing, got my school to pay for lunch and dinner, and just just kind of waited for you guys to arrive. And so, yeah, that was kind of like, I thought I could not get to that campus knowing that the only and the first community that ever gave me a shot was Jane and Finch. Like, the first community that ever trusted me as a professional was Jane and Finch. So I literally wouldn't be, why am I crying? I don't need to cry.
Hey, it's the season finale. Emotional. Cry.
It's emotional, right? To be like, there's nobody else out there to give you a shot. And then this community is like, yo, come, we got you, right? And then you build an entire career from that one opportunity. I was like, I have to do that. I can't not do that for somebody else. So that's that was kind of the inspiration behind it. And then the thing I didn't count on was how few people had ever thought to do that before. So it became a big deal, and I was like, why are you guys surprised? Do you not take your community with you when you go places? What? Why is this such a shock?
That's a rhetorical question. The answer is usually no.
Right, exactly. But in my head, that's just not how I've ever worked, right? I'm always like, yo, if you go somewhere, you take people with you. You never go by yourself. And so, yeah, it was I thought I was just doing the regular thing. And then it just turned out to be a big deal. And I know Harvard is a big deal, but I was like, but I'm there. So it's not that big a deal because now people are just coming to see someone they know. Right. Mm-hmm. But apparently it was.
Yeah, no, I really respect that. I respect the fact how, like, you know, you never forget about, like, your roots and, like, where you come from. Because I don't want to start, like, this whole controversy, but, you know, everyone usually, once they get, like, a taste of something good, you know, it's not that they want to forget where they come from, but, again, it's very hard for them to remember what they grew up on. Because, again, they're just living in.
True, and it's true. Like, life definitely, like, life has a way of just kind of carrying you forward in a way that you have to keep moving forward, because if you stand still, you're going to get knocked over by the wind, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I get that. But I think that's also like part of being entrenched in community. Like, I don't know. And my story is a little unique, right? But like, I can't imagine me going to Harvard and not saying anything to anyone and not having anyone come back to me being like, yo, you just forget about us? Like, I don't ever want to be caught in the street when someone's like, yo, you just dipped. Like, what? I don't know. I care enough to be like, yo, I want to be able to face I want to be able to face people when I come back.
Oh yeah, no, I get it.
Gonna disappear. So
I totally get it. Like, you know, I remember when I left Downsview, so many people were telling me like, yo, you better get us out of this, like, all the struggle and everything. And like, you don't realize, like, man, like, if you're not built to, like, you know, face all the challenges, like, that's pressure.
Yeah.
Sitting there like, oh my gosh, like, they want me to do this, want me to do that. And again, if you're not able to, like, really do all the stuff that they're asking, they're like on you like, bro, I thought you had us. Like, what's going on?
True. Yo, people will let you know when you let them down too.
My God. But like, you know, I feel like that's a great way to, like, motivate people as well. Like, no one's like, we're not trying to bring you down, but like, dude, it's like, some of us may not have it as easy as you, and like, we see all of your strength, we see like you're seeing it, how you're putting all this work out.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing is, like, so I did this, right? And like, the world has a general idea of like who Harvard students are, right? Like, very overachievers, like are the gold star kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I was organizing this thing, I was just organizing it, right? But I could have gotten a class credit for it. Like, I could have, like, there are people that literally do these things for like course credit and like to win favor with professors. And so there's like a really famous, like worldwide famous professor that's responsible for organizing. And by the time that you guys got to campus, I had already been kind of recognized as like a campus organizer, like organizing against social injustice and around social causes, right? So this professor was like, so what, you don't want to, you're not trying to roll, like, what's up? Like, and I was like, yo, I don't need your blessing to like, to organize. Like, I'm not even thinking about that kind of transaction. Like, the only thing I was thinking about, which is, I guess, it's a difference between, you know, two different paths, but like, when some people organize or they do things, they're not thinking about the people who are like, yo, you have it better than us, like, we're going to hold you accountable. They're thinking about everyone who's like, yo, let me give you my blessing and take you on my path, right? And like, I was like, yo, I don't, like, your blessing would be cool, but like, I'm not doing this for that, right? Like, I'm doing this for something else. So, once it was all done, because nobody quite understood what I was trying to do, right? Because no one had done it, right? I was like, they're like, what do you mean you're going to bring students to campus from Canada? What do you mean?
And I think like that's like the breaking point. You know, people see stuff like they're not used to, and then, you know, instead of to just understand, or even at best, just like leave it alone, because maybe it's just none of your business, and you know, you're just trying to like inject yourself into it, but it's like you have no understanding even before. It's like, it's not like you can even make like a hypothesis, like, you know what, okay, I can see why you're doing this there for this A, B, and C and this reason. I feel like people just kind of jump in because like, wait, this is grabbing attention, oh my god, let me go in there and just see what's happening.
Exactly. Hype beast. I'm not about it. I'm not about that. I'm not about it.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. But the trip, it was really amazing. Just coming from me, like I know like there's a lot of people that could say like that trip was amazing. It's probably one of the biggest highlights I had like in high school ever, you know. That
I'm
was
so happy.
that was just it
I'm
was
happy because high school was terrible for me. I had no positive experiences in high school, and that's why I dropped out of high school. And so the other thing was like when I went to school and I started meeting other teachers, and I was like, oh, not all white teachers hate Black students, right? Like there were like little things. I literally like had these ideas growing up that schools are just not built for Black people, right? Like if there are white people around, then they don't want us there, because I had teachers who would like regularly call the police on me and my friends, who like always made life difficult. Every time I tried to do something, they cut me down. So the other thing that was really important for me was like, I had to make sure that because it's, when you go to a school board and you're like, oh, I have this opportunity to bring the kids to Harvard. They're like, let's find our kids in, I don't know, I can't even, like Forest Hill or whatever, right? Like let's find the kids who are like rich and wealthy and connected to like whomever, right? Like have all these connections. And I was like, no, that's not what I said. Like that's not what I said, right? Like no, that's not what this is about. And so yeah, it was just like I think that was just like another important thing for me to think about, was just the importance of those connections and the importance of like just being a role model in a way that didn't make it easy for someone to be like, oh, anyone could have done this, right? Yeah. Like I wanted it to be a special thing where if you said like, this is my highlight, this is the highlight of my high school experience, was going to Harvard University campus, like that's like, I don't know. I feel like that's just a whole other level of richness and experience, like when you think about like where your life can go from there.
Yeah, you know what, like I always had this when being in high school. Like I was a person that liked to do a lot of things, because like like you said your high school experience was like bad. My middle school experience was terrible. It was just really work. There was no clubs, there really wasn't anything you could do in terms of like that would be in your interest. So when I got to high school, I'm like, no, I have to hop in, because like I'm not trying to be stuck for another 4 years just doing the same road, right? Yeah. So I always thought like, even though I'm getting all these opportunities, I do advocate that for other people to get the same opportunities as me. Now I'm trying to say like don't get me wrong, like I'm trying to do I think everyone has this self-interest in them, but at the same time, it kind of makes me think when someone's like, oh my God, yo, man, you're doing all these things. It's like, yo, do you think I can hop on it? And like, it's not that I don't want to hop on it, because I know there's people that look at certain like Black students and they're like, you know what? You can't really rely on them. I trust you more, And it's like, hold on, we're an entire community. If I'm trying to get some food, if I'm trying to eat, they're going to eat too. We're not going to cut this division and just split everyone up.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
It's interesting, very interesting. But you were present at one of the Black Brilliance conference. I believe it was
at the first and the second.
First and the second, yes. And how was it? How did you think about the entire event?
So I mean, I was texting. I can't even remember now who I was texting. There were a bunch of downs. Maybe we were on Instagram, but we were like, I was texting back and forth because nobody knew I was coming. So me showing up was a surprise for you guys. And so I, like hopped on a plane and just like really low key about it and showed up. And I like the one thing I'll never forget were like the screams, the like, I can't believe it. Yeah. And I was just like, it was just like a beautiful moment. It was like a really beautiful moment because I got to organize this experience that you guys turned into like an experience where you're leading now your peers, right? Like you're leading your teachers, you're showing Toronto how it's done. And so what I felt in that warm welcome was like, kind of like I felt like an older sister, right? Like I was just like so proud. Like I know before you guys took that trip, like I'd never met any of you guys, right? Like I didn't know you guys, and people kept saying like, why are you doing this for kids you don't know? And I'm like, why do I have to know them to want them to do well? Like, what? That doesn't.
Yes.
Right. So I was like, I don't have to personally know them for me to want them to win. Like, I want them to win, and they're from the community that means a lot to me. So we're just going to do that. So when that greeting happened, it was one of those things where it's like, yo, we're no longer strangers, right? Like, we're no longer strangers, and we're no longer even just acquaintances. Like, now we're at another level because like you guys are now carrying forth a legacy. Right. And so it was really beautiful. But the thing I wasn't prepared for was like the press, like the media showed up. Yeah. And I was like, crazy. What? I'm like, guys, this is not my thing. Like, this is, I'm not, right? Because I told because of the way that I got to Harvard, the press was just interested in like what I was doing. So I was like, again, if you're going to shine a light on me, I got to shine a light on other people. So that's why, so they interviewed a bunch of you guys about the trip. And then I was like, oh, by the way, like, I'm going to go back and like go to the first Black Brilliance. And then the press showed up, and then they were like, we want to talk about this. And that, to me, that was the next level of everything, right? Because those stories are not stories you read about on the regular. Like, the press doesn't show up for those stories.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so that was just like a beautiful thing. So I was really proud, and I was really, really honored that like in the short time, like it was a short time, right? Like a year, not even a year. It was, because you guys came in April.
We did that.
Black Brilliance was the following November.
Yeah, like 6 months probably.
6 months. And like in that time, like look what you guys managed to pull off. Like,
for all the people listening, like this was so stressful. Like planning the first one, like after school, like having to sit there and do the thing. And again, like take into consideration the people on the like for the first year. They were also busy people as well. Like we had our own stuff to do. Like I still remember the first meeting. I think it was at CW Jeffries, and I had to miss a soccer practice because it's like we had to do this. And like people are like, "Oh, I'm missing this and that. Oh my god, like what's going on?" And it just kind of continues. So like you have to prioritize and everything. But it was just such a hassle. Like we were so proud, and like to just see the impact, guys. Like it's been 4 years straight. We've been doing this. It's caused this chain reaction where like other schools are doing like their own like additions to it. It's like it's got the TSB talking.
Waiting list apparently for like schools that want to register on the day of for the conference.
Yes.
Like, every time folks talk, I'm like, oh, how many schools this year? They're like, well, we have a waiting list of X. I was like, a waiting list.
I believe last year we had like 23 schools.
20 schools, yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And, like, it's amazing just to see the growth, and like it continues to grow still. So. I'm getting emotions. It's so much. It's a
beautiful thing. And you know what? And the thing especially that I love about this in Toronto is that often when Black students organize themselves, other organizations try to show up and tell Black students how to be organized. And in all of these 4 years, you guys are still, not only are you leading the way, like you've graduated and you're coming back and mentoring and supporting. Like you are showing leadership in ways that I don't even think you guys realize.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's just something like we have a passion for this. Like we never, every time, like I know sometimes I get that moment, I'm in class in university and it's like I'm just thinking, I'm like, I wonder what's happening with BB this year. Like what's going on? Like are we doing this? Are we doing that? What are the pieces we're putting together, you know? And like again, like you can see like my passion, guys, for everyone that's listening, there are times I literally tell my professors like, I'm not coming to lecture or I'm not coming to the tutorial. I'm going to plan for a conference. I'm helping people. And like, you know, like that's the passion. Like, for all the people that know, like I just show up on a random day and they're like, Sean, what are you back for? And like at this point, when I keep doing it, people just know it's like, you're back for BB. Yeah, I see why you're here. Now it's just.
Yeah. And on my side, because when you guys came to visit, of course, the people that ran most of like the different parts of the program that I organized, like a lot of them were my classmates and my friends and my professors. And so like, I'm still connected to them. And so they, on the other side, so as you're like, oh, I'm organized and I'm making this a priority. I've got all the people on my side who are like, yo, what's happening this year? Like,
Mm.
like we would love to take a trip to Toronto and just like see what's come of this thing, because like every year it's getting bigger. Like when I put up my little, you know, my little IG post of what happens at lunchtime or whatever, they're like, yo, that's lit. Like all of that from one trip. And I was like, you guys don't even know, right?
Yeah. It's more to it.
Yeah, like on my side, everyone's like feeling a little bit of FOMO. They're like, yo, we want to be down too.
Yeah, absolutely. So also like you're known as a person that likes to do a lot of like, you know, work in the community, you know, and like I just want to like just hear more about like your community work here in Toronto, because again, you mentioned you did some work in Jane and Finch. Like, you know, how did that first started? Like, was this just something that you were just like you had an opportunity and just from there you just had a passion, it just continued to grow, or like was this something you kind of had set in your mind?
Yeah, so so I got started pretty young. So I mentioned I dropped out of high school, and for a time I needed somewhere to live, so I lived in a shelter for a little while. And when you lived, at least in the shelter that I lived in, it was like it was a YWCA shelter downtown by Spadina, and at least that's the last one. I started at one in Sherburne. And then ended up at Spadina because they were like, yo, we got to get you out. So one of the things at the shelter was that you had to be out of the house between 9 and 4, like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You couldn't be in the shelter. You had to find something to do. And they gave you what they called PNA, which is basically, I don't even know what it stands for, but it was a bus ticket and $1.75. And that's what you had for the whole day to like figure it out. And so what's the first thing you're going to do when all you have is a bus ticket and $1.75?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go find food. So I went to City Hall. I don't know why I ended up there. Oh no, that's a lie. Before I went to City Hall, I went to this place called it used to be, I don't even know if it still exists, Youth Employment Center.
Yeah.
Okay, so Youth Employment Center used to have another arm to their work called Youth Business Center for young people that wanted to start their own businesses. Mm. And it was around the corner from Youth Employment Center, and they never promoted it too tough. But, you know, I'm always the one that's like kind of walking down off the beaten path, right? So I was like, what's behind there? And so my community work started because I got a referral from the Youth Business Center to do some work with Eva's Phoenix, or to enroll in a program at Eva's Phoenix. Eva's Phoenix then connected me to an organization called Self-Help Resource Center. There, I was basically like an intern. I was like a paid intern there. And the executive director there was like, I want to create this like youth, and this is a long time ago. Like, I'm probably before some of y'all that are listening were born. But the executive director was like, I want to create this youth program, but I want it to be like authentic to young people. So I'm going to give you $500 to like start your own program, whatever you want that to look like. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm still a teenager, right? I was just like, you sure you're going to give me $500 to just like do this? And she's like, yeah, I trust you. You're good. So, eventually I reached out to a bunch of people, and so I reached out to a bunch of people, got involved in the work that was happening at City Hall, and then Young Leaders was starting. So, you know, the spot, I don't even know, does the spot still exist?
I haven't really been around here, so I'm not sure. So
there used to be a youth center at, what's the mall across from Jane and Finch Mall now?
Jane and Finch, Yorkgate
Mall, yeah. So there used to be a youth center at Yorkgate Mall. I don't know if it's still there because it's been almost 7 years since I've been there. But it was called The Spot. And before The Spot was The Spot, I ran the youth program.
Okay.
And that program was called Young Leaders of the Inner City, I think is what they called it. I think that's what the program was called. And our goal was to produce a talent show at Driftwood. And the goal was to produce this talent show at Driftwood without incident, without like any drama, without police showing up. Like we had all these goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we pulled it off. We had like 200 people show up. It was really dope.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like this amazing talent show. Police showed up after the fact, and we were like, "There's nothing here, guys. There's nothing here." And so like everyone was like, we pulled it off.
It's the assumptions. It's like the negative stigmas and
Of
everything.
course, because it was in the so like we did this. The talent show was in the evening, right? It was at Driftwood Community Center. So of course, like you already know what the neighborhood's like with police, right? So in the evening times. So of course they're seeing like people coming into the community center and just like more and more people. So by the time the show was over and they showed up, we were like, nothing to see here, guys. Talent show's done. So that's my really long-winded way of saying like that's eventually how I found myself in Jane and Finch. So our goal as a youth group for young leaders was to advocate for young people in Jane and Finch. And the first thing we wanted to do was like let go of like try to change the stigma. Right? Try to change like the public story and the public narrative. And so we would meet every week and we would organize different things and we talk about different issues, much like Black Brilliance. And so we decided together that the talent show was going to be the thing that brought the entire community together. And then that was so successful, it turned into the youth center. It turned into the spot. There was kind of more funding. It attracted kind of more funding, and a lot of people were a lot more interested in supporting and investing in the community. So then from there, I started working at Peach. So Peach there was like an era where there was like the zero tolerance era where like it was. I think we mostly worked out of Westview and Jeffries, but there was just like students were getting suspended, no questions, suspended and expelled, no questions asked, right? Like zero tolerance. Like someone would look at a teacher funny and then the teacher would call the police. And the program that I ran was for what happens once you get, instead of you getting suspended or expelled, you got to come to school at Peach. And then I'd run this program to make sure you didn't get expelled. Like you could still do your coursework, and we had a teacher on site, and we did all these life skills, and we did job training. We did a whole bunch of stuff. So that was suspended in studying is what the program was called at Peach. And so and then after that I did Women Moving Forward a couple years later. So this is kind of like all of these kind of youth focused programs that focus on organizing, but it all started because I went to this self-help resource center, then went to City Hall, and then like reached out, and then the folks that I knew or that I connected with that were also from Jane and Finch were like, "Yo, just come up here." I was like, "All right."
Well, that's amazing. That is really amazing. And again, like all the stuff, just hearing it back, it's just kind of similar to like what I'm doing right now. Like I'm part of like this whole project where like we're trying to make sure that researchers from outside of the community when they come in, usually they like to do all these interviews, all these like collect all this information on the Jane Finch community, and they like to just spin it in their own way, make it seem that we're a bad neighborhood or like, oh, there's a lot of gun violence and this and that. And, we just want to make sure that like, we're changing that narrative. Like you said, like, that we are not misrepresented,
Right.
It's something that like, again, for some people, it may be a sensitive topic, but like that's really the world we live in. That's how we are viewed by society. It's just asking yourself, how do we make sure that we fix this or get at least like address these issues to more people so that they understand what's really going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we own our own narratives, like whoever we are, right? Like if we're talking about women or Black women or people from a particular community, or like we need to own our narratives, because a lot of these, especially the media and especially research, right? Like especially places that show up in neighborhoods and essentially like extract all the value so that they can advance their careers. Like those people need to be held accountable, that they can't just do that to us, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, the work that you guys are doing is actually built on some of the work that was started when I was also working in the community. And I heard lots of people saying like, we got to do something about it. And so, the fact that you're at this, you're now part of the, you're part of the group and the generation now that's, taking action on that is it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Thank you. And you just had like such a like amazing just story again, like all this trials and tribulations you've gone through, like, you know, what did that just tell you as like an individual, but not just as an individual, but like as a Black woman, especially like, you know, especially you being in America right now, and like,
yeah,
oh, that's a whole mess. So
that's a show for another day. But I mean, I will say that, I mean, I was birthed by a resilient, brilliant, beautiful Black woman, right? Like, how could I not believe that I could make it if she could make it, right? That's kind of always been the belief. If the women that came before me made it, like, what's my excuse? And so that, I mean, for me, it was less about like what it means for me, and more about what it means in the way that I understand them, right? Like anyone who's not me, like the outside world. Mm-hmm. And I probably, I mean, I don't know, I've never tried to distill it into like rules or, you know, like rules or principles, but I definitely learned, if I could name it, I'd say like one thing, like number one, you know, I learned that these systems aren't built for me. Mm-hmm. And I have to be aware of that. Or they haven't been built in a way that considers me. That's another way to think about it. Yeah. That's really clear. And then two, that these systems are designed by humans. And if humans are flawed, these systems, of course, are going to be flawed. Mm. And so, like, often people talk about things like they're fixed and they can't be changed. And I'm like, if people design this, then people can redesign it. Like, it's not set in stone. It's only set in stone because you believe so deeply in it. But we can change it if we want to change it. And now, honestly, that was kind of the idea that shaped like why I decided to do the trip too. Because people are like, we've never done that before. And I'm like, okay, so do it now. Like that's like, well, that's how we do this, right? Like if we've never done something before, then we just take the initiative and do it. And then I think the third thing is that if you want to make it, you'll make it. Like, if you want to win, you'll find a way to win. And the one thing that my mom, my family, like the matriarchs of my family have been very clear about, like, is, yo, we're going to win. Like, you could, like, I don't know what game you want to play with me, but the game I'm about to play with you, I'm going to win it. Trust me.
Yeah.
Right? And so that was kind of, you know, I think that when I think about my story, when I think about my journey, when I think about whether it's like dropping out of high school or being homeless or like all of those things, or like not being allowed to be in the house from 9 to 4, or like having $1.75 in my pocket and having to, this is like before Liberty Village ever existed. So if you know downtown, like Liberty Village is now like condo town. But when I was coming up, it was a tow truck lot. It was a tow lot. Like that's all it was. It was like, so and the place that I went to, you had to literally cross the tracks to get past the tow lot to get to this place, right? Wow. And like, but in my head, that's not what I was thinking about. I was just like, yo, I'm going to make it. Like, I'm going to win. I'm going to figure this out. Once I get there, I'll figure out what to do. I don't have to have a huge, well-orchestrated plan before here, but trust me, like, I know where I'm going. And so that's kind of been the thing that's really guided me.
That's really well put. And, you know, again, for anyone who's listening, you know, if you feel like you can do something, like, you just need to put your mind into it. Like, trust me, there's a lot of things that we can accomplish, but I think what the issue is that we're trying to see if we can play catch up to this person, if we're trying to like match the standards of another person. Listen, like, I'm saying this, like, no filter. I am not trying to become a second version of anyone. I'm not trying to like measure up to anyone. Listen, you have your accomplishments. I have my accomplishments. What I will do, I will support you. I'm not going to compete against you. That's
right.
You know, like, I just feel like, why am I going to waste my time fighting against what you have when I need to fight for what I have now?
That's it. That's exactly it. Like, so, I am enough competition for myself. I don't need to worry myself with you. Like, I don't. Really don't.
And there's going to be people, and again, like, when I say that, there are also going to be people that want what you have as well. So it's not only just like you want to chase what other people have, but people might want what you have as well. So again, like, if you believe there's something that you can't do. Like, again, like, trust me, you have the initiative to take it. It's just you need some support. Maybe you just need some type of motivation. Like, I know for me, like, I'm always a person that, like, yo, if I do this, I'm gonna get it done. Like, I don't care what people say. Like, I'm a very outgoing person, and like, people know that. Like, when they see each other, like, oh, this guy's doing everything. This guy's doing this and that. Oh my gosh, like, it's like he can't stop. For other people, it's like, you know what? I'm just taking it one step at a time, and like, that's cool. And I'm here to support you, but I feel like we need to stop this whole competing, like, oh my God, I'm trying to be better, this and that. And listen, there's nothing wrong with saying I'm trying to, like, get to the top, and like, nothing wrong, because again, like, we all have this, like, braggadocious energy about us. But if that's like your main thing, like, every day you're just kind of like having this like fetish to beat the next person, it's just like, what about you?
Well, if you're trying to compete against someone else, that means you're always chasing them. Yeah. Like, you're always going to be behind them because you don't know what they're doing next, and you're not busy planning like what's next for you. You're busy chasing them. Like, that's not, I don't know, that's not life to me. I
mean, if you're so busy like trying to run and like chase to the person, it's like, my goodness, man, like, you're gonna have to be running on like high energy.
Right, like, run your own race. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but, I agree with you 100%. Those are wise words to all the listeners. Clearly, the president, Sean, whatever you know him as, he knows what he's saying.
Hey, I mean, like,
Gems of wisdom.
So, I think let's get to the final thing. You have your own podcast.
I do.
Yes, the Gall podcast. I said Gall like a big idiot the first time we talked about it. I apologize. But
You're good. So,
like, honestly, like, I listened to the first episode. I was like really amazed. I'm like, wow, like, this is well put. Like, I was related to so many things, especially with the emails and just how it just breaks down like the psychology around it. And, for everyone listening, again, like, please go check her out. But, I think for me, like, the best thing I could do for you is, like, give you just like some tips or like at least tell you my experience. So again, I think for me, it's always been the issue of like, what are you going to talk about? I think that's always the first thing, what are you actually going to like, say? And it goes deeper to now of like, okay, if you say this, who's going to like back you up, or who's going to say, oh, yo, this is really good.
So actually, let's take a step back. Let me describe what the podcast actually is.
Okay.
Or like, okay. So the Gall podcast, right? The Gall is like an expression when you're like, yo, this person has some nerve, right? Like, it's another way to say it. It's like, yo, the gall of this person. That's kind of the expression there. And so, like, with that in mind, the purpose of the podcast is, we're starting, it's a very like small idea, but I've had my fair share of people trying to come for me by email or like, instant message or DMs or whatever. And I'm just like, and I read, like, sometimes I read these messages and I'm like, yo, this person has some nerve. And like, yeah, sure, I might say something to like a friend, like, yo, can you believe this woman? Can you believe this guy? And I just thought it would be really interesting to read those emails, like go through my inbox and find those emails and get people to start, like, getting the people I know around me to like read them and see what they think and see how they break it down. So, so the first episode was about a woman who I didn't know. I don't know personally. I never met this person at all, but she had my email because this is also connected to the Harvard story. I crowdfunded for my tuition to go to Harvard. And so she was one of the crowdfunding supporters. And I sent everyone this message because I sent all my supporters a message because I had accomplished a new thing. And I was like, oh, hey, everyone, here's an update. So I sent out this update, and the update was like, it shouted out Black Brilliance. It shouted out all the things that happened, right? I was like, yo, these are all the great things that have happened thanks to the like $1, $2, $5, $50 you sent me, like whatever you sent me, right? Like, it went somewhere. It went, like, it not only just helped me, but it helped other people. So that was the message. And this person came for me. Like, she was like, did you even graduate? Like, what did you do with my money? Like, she was just like out of pocket. And so I was like, you know what? I could read this email, but maybe I'm just like taking it personal because she's like, I'm being personally attacked. So I was like, I have a friend who went to Oxford, who's also from Toronto, who literally studies like linguistics for a living. And I was like, let's get her on the podcast and let's see, like, am I just being like, is it me, or is a professionally trained English literature scholar also on my side for this?
Yeah.
And so that format, that idea of like, it doesn't matter, like, it's not always going to be an Oxford trained, like it could be like, so like my next guest is going to be another friend that I have that works at Facebook, right? And like, I'm going to have different people that it's like, yo, read my email and tell me, like, here, I'm going to set up the scenario. Whatever you know about your life and your expertise, just read my email and tell me what you think. Tell me how you would respond. So that's the whole format of the Gall podcast.
Yeah, that's again well put. And for anyone who's listening, imagine a situation again if you're on social media and like someone hits you with that message and you make a face like, wait, what did that person just say? It's basically like that. Basically like that. But yeah, like I love the concept of the podcast. I think it's great, honestly. Like I was kind of laughing like for a couple of minutes. I'm like, this is kind of too much. But yeah, so like I think you said you're planning to do your next episode, and like again, you're new to the game. So I just want to ask you before like we kind of get into like the whole tips thing, like how has it been for you, like the whole process?
Oh man, I have a new level of respect for podcasters. It's like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like editing. So mine is like because it's a very storytelling type of format. Like our conversation was 2 hours, but the episode is 30 minutes.
Wow.
Like
that I did not know.
Yeah, our conversation was 2 hours and I edited it down to 30 minutes. Because I just didn't want it to be I don't want it to be no long talking thing. So I was like, okay, let's think of like a commute to work or like a commute to school or whatever, right? I was like, I want you to like start, like I want you to walk through the door, out of your house, push play, and then get to your place of work or get to school or whatever and be like, yo, that was hilarious. Like, this is a great way to start my day. So yeah, editing.
I feel guilty now. I feel guilty because like I if anyone knows, I have a couple 1 hour episodes myself.
Well, you tailor it to your audience, right? Like it depends on your audience, but I felt like my audience, whoever I was going to give this to, they only had 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So so the recording was one thing, and then I had a microphone, but it didn't work with the laptop I was using, and then the app that I was using to record, I couldn't get on my laptop, so like the sound quality is really bad.
Yeah.
It was just like all the things it was like the little details are really, really stressful. And then when it came to editing, I lost my file like 3 times. Like I was like, okay, ready to go. Just the file disappeared, and I was like, are you telling me I have to edit this whole thing again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there was all of those things, and so then once it was out, then it was about promoting the thing, right? And I honestly, honest to God, never thought about that. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna record this and it's gonna live on the internet. And then I was like, no, I need listeners. I need to tell people that I'm doing this. So then there was like the marketing side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I realized like I put the episode up September 1st, and I've literally almost every other day have been marketing this thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even have that many listeners. I think the last number I was at was like 60, right? Like I had 60 listeners
and
in 3 weeks,
And I think the most important thing is like patience. I think that like just covers everything from recording, editing, to the promotion aspect. Because like, I think especially the promotion aspect, I think everyone is expecting that like it needs to blow up like now. Yeah. Like, and like we all know, like when it comes to the world of social media, it would have to be like and again, like I'm not trying to say that you and we don't have that ability to create like masterpiece, but it would have to be like, it has to like intrigue to like the majority in a sense, like, oh my God, like that was pretty good. That was pretty good. But like, for you in terms of like editing, I know how that feels. Like usually what I do, I like develop a format of like what I'm going to say, like all the talking points and everything.
Write it out?
Yeah, I do. I do.
That's smart. I didn't do that. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna show her an email. We're gonna see where it goes. And then it was like 1 hour passed, 2 hour passed. I was like, oh.
No.
Honestly, I even told her, I was like, oh, this is gonna be quick. Your part's gonna be 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna talk for about 10, and the episode will be done. She's like, sure, no problem.
Like 2 hours later.
That did not happen. Yeah.
No. It's
smart. That's smart that you write out your script.
I know, I totally know how you feel. The first episode, like when I was talking about the whole coronavirus, when it was just starting, I just said, let me just wing it. Like, I was like, there were moments like I had to pause. Like I talked just dead air, like dead space. Talk dead space because I need to gather my thoughts, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And like, it's horrible because like imagine you're editing too. Like you want to have that skill set where like when you record and when it comes to editing, you have a small amount of time. Like, it'll probably take you 5 minutes. The first time I did that episode, I kid you not, I sat in front of my computer for an hour editing. It was like, it was excruciating. I'm like, I really can't.
Yeah. Mine took much longer, but again, I was editing down 2 hours of conversation, and I did it 3 times because I lost my file.
Yeah.
Never doing 2 hour conversations ever again.
Yeah. For editing, like what I usually do now is like, I have like certain bits. So like usually I have my intros and everything. So what I do ahead of time, like I download the music and I take all the stuff I need in terms of editing and I put them in like a folder. So like once I open it, like my editing software, like everything's just there. I just insert, just cut, trim, and I'm done like in about 10 minutes.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I think I haven't quite figured out my intro. Like, so this first episode, I started with like, it's like an opening rant question, thinking to myself, like monologue. And I don't know if I'm going to keep that as the intro. But so the thing that I'm doing is I've created an insiders group for my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So on Patreon. And so my insiders group are like people that I'm like, you're down for me, you support me, and you're going to give me money towards making this thing better. And so these people for like $1, for $2, some $5, like whatever they have, they're going to put in the pot every month. And I'm going to use that to help do things like, pay for the different services to improve on everything. So what I did this time, because there isn't like, before the episode came out, I asked them to just listen to the episode and give me all the feedback on like all the details. And so like I have a lot so I have 17 people. My goal is 25. So I have 17 people who literally just broke down the podcast for me. They're like, so this part changed this part sounded rough here, this part sounded this, the intro sounded like, I've basically like my own crew of like editors and like judges.
That's amazing.
To give me feedback. So that helped a big deal. So I think, but I like your idea of having folders and like just having your bits ready to go. I think that's what I'm working towards, but I don't know if I'm there yet.
May I just say the intro and the monologue, I think you should keep that. I thought that was like original. I'm like, you don't see that in like podcasts. Usually you hear the music and then it's like welcome and everything. That was like, I was like, wow. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Honestly, I'm like, that was clever.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I think you should keep.
I was like, so I actually tried. So initially, I did try to do the standard because I listened to a bunch of podcasts, including yours, before I got started. And I was like, okay, so let me do a practice run. I was like, so this episode, and I was like, this doesn't sound like me. Like the whole style of the episode is like an angry rant, like not an angry rant, but it's like. It's like a very emotional. It's supposed to be an emotional experience, right? You're supposed to like the moment you hear it. You're supposed to be like, and then what happened, right? Like there's the mystery and then there's the laughter. And then like, so I was like, okay, if we're going to make it emotional, the moment I'm like, and this is your host, that's when you like, for me, that's when the person checks out, right? Because then they're like, oh, I'm not in the story anymore. And my goal was to like, make sure you were like in the mid, like you could feel like you were reading the email,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm glad that worked. I'm going to try a few things and see what ultimately sticks, but I'm really glad that you like that intro.
Mm-hmm. And like, again, the promoting and everything, usually I create like posts like ahead of time. Like, I use Canva and I just make a bunch of
that too. Yeah. You got the whole format down. Like you got a system, yo. Like you should take on some interns because like you've literally got a whole system to like make your podcast like really blow up. Like the hardest part I think of growing anything is figuring out how to grow it like as a system, right? Where someone could show up and you could be like, you do this, you do that, and then by the time you both are done, I can take it from there. And I feel like you've already got that system set up.
Thank you. I feel like I have that confidence too. Like it's like all I need is a big platform. Like that's all I need, because I feel like people listen to me, but I understand why I don't get as much, because again, people are busy. When I might drop an episode, a certain person might hear it, another person may not, because like, oh, I have work, I have classes, I'm doing something. Like if I just get it on a big enough platform, I feel like
like Joe Rogan the game.
Yeah, so like absolutely. But I'm very excited to hear like your upcoming episode. You know, like I know you did like a whole poll of like what am I going to talk about and everything. So like that was really clever too. You know, like sometimes for me, I may see like an idea in my head, like, you know, I want to talk about this. It may be something I hear just online and like, okay, we're gonna talk about this. And like it's already hard enough for me because like this wasn't like the only podcast I was doing this summer. I had another one as well.
Like I'm literally only producing one episode a month. Like that's, and I'm already overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't know how anybody else could do more than that. Like you are definitely like you got it. Like hats off to you.
Thank you. So I mean, I guess in terms of advice, you know, just take things like one step at a time. You know, it's okay if you don't get everything at once, because trust me, I probably got everything together. I got my shit together like halfway through the season.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
that's a relief, actually.
Yeah. Like, in something like 10 episodes, be like, okay, now we're in session. So like, just take things one at a time. You know, if you want to organize your stuff, that's great as well. You know, just make sure like you're always like making sure that everything's not lost as well. Like you have to be scrambling around.
Yeah.
And again, always have confidence. Like, you know, when you're doing your recording. Usually, I remember the first time, like, I was so nervous. Like, I was sweating before. I'm like, oh, my God. But, like, I really had to just, like, take a deep breath. Like, you know what? I'm going to just be me. And you know what? Again, like, there's going to be people who are like, you know, he does his things kind of weird. I don't like how he talks, this and that. Usually, I just block all that negativity out. Like, you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
You have your opinion, and then this is what I have to say. Like, you know?
I think that's the right way to do it. Because I was also really frazzled because of the whole microphone record. Like I had the plan in my head, and then when I like went to hit record, it was like this thing's not working. And like when you listen to the episode, you can hear like my microphone's kind of weak because I was holding I was really like my body language. If it was recorded, like if you could see it on video, you could tell that I was uncomfortable because it wasn't perfect in my mind, right? Like it wasn't the thing that I wanted it to be. And I was like not relaxed enough to let it roll. But when by the time you get to the end of the conversation, you can hear that like I'm cool. Like I kind of find my rhythm and I feel fine again. But yeah, no, like that piece of advice is like really key, because even though you're talking to people you know, and like there's just something about recording it and knowing that it's just gonna live. Like it's just gonna live online. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It changes the way you approach and like the way your body feels about it. So yeah, thank you for that advice.
Absolutely, yeah. I can understand the mic thing. Like sometimes I be talking and I just get feedback, and like it's annoying because even if I edit it, like I try, like there's a setting where it's like there's noise reduction. I'm like, okay, this should be fine. It doesn't work at all. Like it's absolutely irrelevant. So then I'm just going in like, you know what? Like, I can't even cut it out because, like, the feedback's literally coming at a point where, like, we're in the middle of the conversation. Like, middle. So it's like, you know what? Just upload it.
Let it rock. Yeah.
If people say it, I'm like, hey, my apologies. Maybe next time I'll put the mic a little bit further away. Maybe you have to talk a little bit lower.
Right.
It's work in progress.
You're getting me excited about doing my next episode. I'm like, I have my interview scheduled for this week. And I'm like, okay. Cool.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
Yeah, this one's gonna be. I don't know how this one. I mean, I never know, right? Like, but we'll see how it turns out. It's with an old classmate who now works at Facebook, and I only mention that because like the issue that we're gonna discuss has to do with like being around a certain type of group of people. And like just dealing with them when they like all feel like special unicorns. So, yeah. no shade to like anyone at Facebook, because I know some of y'all, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a certain way to deal with people when they feel like they walk into a room and they feel like they're special, but everyone else in the room is special too, which then doesn't make you special. So yeah. So we'll see.
Is there like a release date for that? Is there like a specific dates that's coming out?
Don't put me on the spot like that.
I mean, like a little teaser, just like it's for the listeners.
Well, so I'm aiming for October 1st. I'm trying to keep it on the first cycle.
Okay.
But I think I'm also this is also part of what I'm practicing, is like trying to figure out the proper release, the time of the week to release it. So I think I'm going to aim for the first Tuesday of every month.
Okay.
That's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing too, knowing when you want to drop your episodes. I know for me, it's every Friday.
Okay.
Like, I feel like, when it comes to Friday, like everyone's just kind of done with the week, and it's like, they just need something to cheer them up going into the weekend. It's like, oh my God, did you hear this guy's podcast? Like, it's perfect. But I think that's it. I think we covered everything. I want to end this, but I don't want to end this. I mean, this is...
We got to do it again when your new season kicks off, because I'll have done... If you do this next year, I'll probably be like almost done my full season of a podcast. So
yeah, absolutely. Guys, I just want to talk to the listeners for a second, guys. This started back in May. Like, this was not supposed to happen. Like, these episodes coming out, like I thought this was just going to be like, you know what? It's quarantine. I'm bored. It's just a phase. I'm just going to drop it. Like, and now we're here, episode 1 to now episode 20. It's crazy. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who's supported me on this. I know there are times like people be liking all the posts I make. Everyone be messaging me personally like, yo, dude, like I respect the things you're doing. People have messaged me personally like, yo, you need to get me on the podcast and everything. It's like, I'm just really proud of myself. I'm just glad like what God's been able to give me, just like this opportunity. Because again, like I did not think this was gonna last forever, and now like I'm going to season 2 next year.
Yeah.
And like, not to mention too, guys, like I'm actually like, here's the thing. I'm done with podcasts, but at the same time, I'm not done, because I will be doing another podcast for my business and society student association club called Negative Balance. So for everyone's listening right now, I'm technically taking an absence of the safe room and I'm going into another podcast. So if you're listening, you guys can tune into that. And trust me, I will let you guys know when that happens as well. It's coming soon. But again, I just want to say thank you to Toni for taking the time to come here. Thank you to everyone listening. I literally don't know what else to say. I can't believe it. Season finale. It's crazy.
Well, it was an honor to just chat with you and kind of share a bit more about me, but also just hear from you about what you're building, where you're going. Like it's always good to like know someone when they're about to like just before they blow up. And I feel like that's what's happening right now, right? Like there's a critical mass swelling around you. Your blessings are about to come like tenfold. And I got to be here. Like I got to be here to see this part of the chapter. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So for everyone, for now, that is gonna do it. Thank you guys for tuning for the Safe Room. Make sure you guys watch all my episodes 1 through 20 on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Anchor. Go check it out, please. Like you're missing out. If you're just joining, if this was your first episode, please just run it back. Just binge and just listen to like the rest, man. And for season 2, guys, I'm trying to do things bigger and better. That's always the goal. That's always the road I'm going to take. But again, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the future.